Welcome back to Roll Call TV, where the Comcast Network and Roll Call Newspaper have joined together to provide this program where we talk all things political. Still with me, Abe Ameros, Political and Communications Director of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, Republican strategist Renee Amore, President of the Amore Group, and via our Washington, D.C. studio, David Drucker, staff writer for Roll Call Newspaper. Welcome back, everybody. Let's talk a few moments about faith, because I think this is very important, and clearly it was very important in the 2004 race where you had George W. Bush, the incumbent president, obviously talking about gay marriage and how he was obviously against that. He was talking about partial birth abortion and stem cell research, really driving a wedge, if you will, between evangelicals or people of faith and people that may not be of faith, and trying to rev up that vote in that base. Senator Obama recently has gone out on this truth campaign and reminding folks that he is not a Muslim, number one. Number two, that he is a Christian. Number three, that he is someone is of faith, and we all know that based on some of the pictures and so forth we've seen coming out of Chicago, his home church or his home city. My question for you, Abe, specifically is do you believe overall that faith is going to be an important issue in this race, particularly in the state of Pennsylvania?
Yes, I think faith has always had a place in politics because your values are roughly centered around your religious beliefs as well. There are individuals that wake up every morning and their only desire is to be a better Christian that day, or a better Muslim or a better Jew in terms of helping others and truly those that are less fortunate. And I think that Senator Obama has made that very clear from the very beginning as a Christian himself, that he wakes up in the morning with every desire to make someone's life a little bit easier. And you know, a few years back, I was at a Latino Democratic Summit in San Antonio, and I sat next to an evangelical. And as we were going around the room introducing ourselves, there were gays and lesbians, there were people in the labor movement, and the evangelical said, you know, I have very little in common with these individuals except for this. When I read the gospel, it tells me I need to be a Democrat, because at the end of the day, it has a fundamental question: am I my brother's keeper? And the answer is yes.
David Drucker, as I mentioned, 4 years ago, we saw some of the games that were played in the U.S. Congress in terms of policy issues that tried to rev up the base, or at least get the base motivated. Do you anticipate any of those type of wedge issue debates to be happening on the floor of the House and the Senate?
No, and that's just because the House and the Senate is pretty much done with what it's going to do for the rest of the year. They'll be in this week, and they'll try and deal with maybe energy, maybe the housing crisis, maybe something else. They'll be off for the month of August campaigning. They'll come back in September, do a little bit, but nothing controversial. And the Democratic-controlled Congress has no desire to lead a debate on gay marriage or stem cell research or whether partial birth abortion should be legal, just to take some of the subjects that you just mentioned. So what we're going to see is some Republican candidates in certain districts and certain states talking about those issues where they think they can benefit. And I think John McCain in certain states may do the same. But I think Barack Obama has already shown that he's not going to be outflanked on the religious values front. He's gone out of his way to show that he is a Christian and that he follows the New Testament as well as the Old Testament. And he's shown that he's interested in pursuing some of the faith-based initiatives, using government money funneled through faith-based organizations to help people, the same way George W. Bush has. And I think he's trying to close the gap between religious Americans and the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party, quite frankly, has suffered over the past few elections, though not 2006, obviously, but they suffered in 2000 and 2004 because they did not want to be open about religion. John Kerry was a religious man but didn't want to talk too much about it. Same with Al Gore. And it really helps Democrats when they embrace religion and they talk about it. It makes people feel like they know who you are and that you're one of us. And in America, religion still matters. Most people still believe in God. And most people are consider themselves religious, even if they don't go to church every single Sunday.
Renee Amore, you know, David just mentioned how the Democrats, for the most part over the last couple of presidential cycles, really didn't talk about their faith. But interesting enough, John McCain doesn't really talk about his faith. We know he is a man of faith, but in terms of going to church, in terms of, or being seen going to church, I should say, in terms of pushing some of these faith value issues that we saw back in 2000 and 2004, that's not really John McCain's forte. Would you agree?
I agree 100%. I think that he's starting to do more of that, but also I think he stayed away from it. If you look at the whole Reverend Wright piece, where there was so many issues around that, Robert, so people kind of like, well, we're not going to go there. Obama has to come out, deal with the faith piece, and also faith-based. It's interesting how he's picked up on George Bush's whole faith initiative, dealing with the churches, all that, you know, which he hadn't done in the Senate. So the bottom line is that because John McCain stayed away from it because he didn't want to get into it, and he didn't want to to come across very negative. Republicans got very upset with him and saying, you have to come out and let people know who you are and what you're about. People buy into that. That's a touchy-feely subject. That's something that he does need to do more of. And he will start doing, and he has been doing more and more of that. And also his surrogates going around the country or doing that, because Republicans have also always embraced faith, just like David and Abe had talked about earlier.
All right, let's talk a little bit about patriotism. I mentioned right before the commercial break that most men that are running for public office, I do believe this, wear the lapel pin on their suit.
What about us?
However, there are some name
Just women.
2 women politicians that wear a lapel pin.
I haven't
2.
seen them lately, but I
Okay.
have, when I have a suit on, real suit.
But seriously, I mean, this is a real issue that Senator Obama has had to confront over the last couple of weeks, where he did not wear a lapel pin, a flag lapel pin, and now all of a sudden you do see him on the campaign trail wearing one. So my question to all of you is, specifically, I'll start with you, Abe, is this an issue, or should this be an issue?
Look, we all understand that campaigns are about human emotions just as much as reason and logic. I personally believe that a lapel pin is not a true measure of patriotism. In fact, if you really want to get technical, find out where that lapel pin was made.
Well, there's some
if it was
controversy
made
about that
in
in China.
China, if it was made in El Salvador, if it was made in another country, true patriots would wear a flag pin made in America, protecting American jobs. I think what happens is we lose focus sometimes on these issues. Real patriotism is A, enforcing and executing the Constitution. B, it's making sure that everyone else around you has an opportunity to succeed as well. If you're really going to be a true patriot, you have to have those core values, love of country. What makes the United States the greatest country in the world is that everyone has an opportunity to make himself or herself better, and to make a life for their children better. Those are true measures of patriotism. I think that Senator Obama's community service is also a measure of patriotism. Patriotism comes in many forms, and of course we salute Senator McCain for his absolutely stellar service in the military as well, which cannot be disregarded, and we respect that and we thank him as well for that.
David Drucker, I remember back in 2001, on September 12th, 2001, and obviously a couple of weeks and months after the September 11th attacks, everyone was wearing flag lapel pins. Everyone was raising the American flag in front of their front lawn and literally wrapping themselves around the flag. Do you really believe that in 2008 that Republicans, or maybe even some Democrats out there, are going to use patriotism as a major wedge issue between both political parties?
Well, sure, if they think it'll work, and why shouldn't they? It's politics. Look, with all due respect to Abe, saying that, you know, arguing over true patriotism and trying to say that it's one thing as opposed to wearing a flag lapel is the same thing as saying that somebody is a true patriot even though they're not standing when the national anthem is being played. And I think Democrats are much better off being that Obama put that flag lapel back on. It's not worth explaining. Am I arguing with Abe that Barack Obama was not a true patriot because he was not wearing a flag lapel? Heck no. He's right. That has really nothing to do with anything. But campaigns are about symbolism as well as the issues. And when you have to start explaining that, well, I'm not doing this, but it doesn't mean I'm not a true patriot, then people start to think, wow, maybe they're not a true patriot. Wear the darn lapel. Nobody asks any questions. It looks great. And you're doing much better. And that's really the way you got to look at these things. We do plenty of things that don't really matter except that they're symbolic. And it's not worth having an argument. There are plenty of people that are much more patriotic than other people that wear flag lapels. If you look at their actions, if you look at their public service, if you look at how they, take care of their fellow man in time of need. But at the end of the day, you don't want these kind of questions in a presidential campaign. And since 2001, the terrorist attacks, wearing a flag lapel if you're a male politician has just become kind of accepted. It's just something you need to do and let it be.
Let's do our quick lightning round. We got about 15 seconds left. Yes or no, do you believe that this is going to be an issue, whether it be faith, values, or patriotism in the race this
Absolutely,
couple
all
months?
three, and especially patriotism. I have to speak on it. Hands down, the
Very
Republicans win because of who John McCain is and the veterans, and that's a hard piece that Barack Obama can't get.
All right, Abe?
I think it always is important to keep all those three factors in mind. Senator Obama has a leg up on all three of them, in my opinion, because he's strong and he connects with people and he makes them feel that way.
Excellent. David Drucker, staff writer for Roll Call newspaper, thank you very much for joining us. And Abe Ambrose, political and communications director of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, and Republican strategist Renee Moore, president of the Renee Group. Thank you all very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Good political talk.